Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. I rise today to reply to the Labor Government's 10th budget. And make no mistake, this budget is nothing more than a desperate cash splash to distract from the pain the Palaszczuk government, Miles government, new, old, but definitely the same Labor government has inflicted on Queenslanders for nearly a decade. Just like the pain, chaos and neglect from my hometown of Ipswich. In Ipswich, the poor cousin to Brisbane, we are witnessing the result of a decade-long inaction by Labor. Jordan, Bundamba, Ipswich and Ipswich West have been regarded for so long by Labor as safe Labor seats. As such, Ipswich has been continuously overlooked for any real funding of anything of real substance for far too long. We have been taken for granted, and the statistics paint a very clear picture. Ipswich is the oldest provincial city in Queensland, yet we have the youngest population out of any local government area. With a forecast doubling of the current population by 2046, Ipswich is only halfway to being a city of 530,000 residents. To put this in perspective, Ipswich will add an extra 222,000 residents and create an extra 70,000 jobs over the next 17 years. The growth in Ipswich is predicted to be the highest of anywhere else in Queensland. In many ways, you could say the future of Queensland's growth and development lies in Ipswich. Its offerings of cities and towns and burgeoning industry sectors presents a city of opportunity for absolutely everyone. Ipswich is positioned in the rapidly expanding Western Growth Corridor of South East Queensland. It is a gateway to our neighbouring agricultural regions, home to the nation's largest RAF base, with an abundance of land for industrial, commercial and residential growth. Located at the confluence of three national land transport road routes, Ipswich connects to our southern states, to the wider South East Queensland region and, of course, Brisbane. Let's not forget the critical food industries on the Western Corridor through the Lockie Valley, Queensland Salad Bowl, and onto the largest inland city in Australia outside of the capital, Toowoomba. But to truly take advantage of the opportunities Ipswich offers, we desperately need investment in core infrastructure projects spanning transport and road connectivity, upgraded sporting facilities and to transition to a circular economy. Mr Deputy Speaker, Ipswich West locals, like many others across Queensland, are so desperate for housing to be built and delivered. We've heard promise after promise made and promise after promise broken by the Palaszczuk government, Miles government, new, old, same government when it comes to housing. After $2 billion and 3 years, the Labor government has built 0 homes with the Housing Investment Fund, 0. Mr Deputy Speaker, as a former small business owner, I can say this investment of capital with no product to show for return on investment, well, that just doesn't fly. It just does not make sense. If I'd run my business that way, I'd be broke, much like the state Labor government is now. But that is why I'm proud of the LNP securing our Housing Foundations plan, which will get more Queenslanders and Ipswich West locals into homes. Under an LNP government, if you build or buy a new home for your first home, you will not pay a single dollar of stamp duty. Abolished, gone, finished. We will also offer a big boost into existing housing for first homeowners by raising the threshold for full stamp duty concessions up to $700,000. Here is a practical, real solution to help fix Queensland's housing crisis. I'm also proud to back the commitment to deliver over 53,000 additional social and community homes by 2044. And, Mr Deputy Speaker, the clear difference here, we are going to be building, not selling off social homes like the Palaszczuk Labor government did in Leichhardt in my electorate in Ipswich West. Because unlike the tired old Labor government opposite, we know that empowering people through home ownership means more security, more dignity and overall a happier, more productive society. But it's not just housing Labor have failed my electorate on. They have also failed to invest in priority projects which are catalytic and region-shaping by nature. leaving the good, hard-working people of Ipswich behind and significantly limiting future growth opportunities. Ipswich is a significant driver of Queensland's economic prosperity. In the last 2 years alone, our gross regional product has risen by almost $2 billion to contribute over $13.7 billion to the state's economy. And by 2027, the Ipswich economy is predicted to burst through the $18 billion mark. But I want to make it very clear, this economic growth is in spite of Queensland's state Labor government. Let me give you an example of when it comes to transport and main roads funding and investment in connectivity for Ipswich locals. Currently, Ipswich has the 6th largest population in Queensland, but was ranked 19th in terms of nominal investment across 23-24 to 26-27 Q-Trip. If we break that down further, we see that spending per capita across the 4-year program equated to only $395 per Ipswich resident. We are predicted to have the fastest growing population, but were ranked 58 among LGAs in Queensland on per capita comparison for investment. On Tuesday, the amount Ipswich will receive per capita changed moderately to $778 per Ipswich resident. And whilst this increase is of course welcome, Ipswich is still losing out to other SEQ councils, like Logan, which receives $2,800 per resident across the next 4 years. I'm sorry, Mr Speaker, even with this increase of funding per person, for me, that math just doesn't add up. We are losing out. We need a state government that will invest in this great city to truly unlock all this region has to offer, not just a government throwing money at last minute, desperate to stay in power and to remain relevant. It wasn't until the threat of losing a safe Labor seat of Ipswich West to the LNP at the recent by-election that true investment began in Ipswich. The pork barrelling, investment began with a promise of $10 million for the North Ipswich Reserve development. This should have been a priority for the state government years ago because it was a catalyst to unlocking the promised $20 million by the federal government and $10 million by the Ipswich City Council for this project to proceed. But I know, leave the people of Ipswich hanging. That's what happened. For far too long, the state Labor government just did nothing, despite the Ipswich City Council continually advocating for this investment. But on the eve of a by-election, which their polling indicated a dire result, the promises started coming. At least now, for all these years of Labor rule, we have had promised the Mount Crosby interchange. It's only taken them 8 years, Mr Deputy Speaker, to find the funding needed for this project, as the then Minister for Transport and Main Roads stated what they would do back in 2016. And whilst we've seen $277 million in joint state and federal funding committed to the Mount Crosby interchange, it is honestly beggars belief to see that only $2.7 million has been allocated over the next financial year to fix this vital piece of infrastructure, which means we are most likely going to see more plans and no action on the Mount Crosby interchange anytime soon. We also now have promised a major repair job for the Bremer River Bridge on the Warrego Highway. The Bremer River Bridge, once again, an important piece of infrastructure that not only has state but also national significance, as it links one of the most important freight corridors in our country. In 2019, a business case study to replace the Bremer River Bridge identified significant defects was developed. That was 2019. Unfortunately, this report still has not been made available. But what we've seen is a promise of $85 million from joint federal and state funding to repair this bridge. So the question remains, though, what will be the impact to the economy by reducing the Warrego Highway, part of the national highway system, down to a single lane in each direction? Over 5,700 heavy vehicles use the Bremer River Bridge daily, connected the wealth of Queensland to Brisbane. To replace a concrete bridge deck will take several months, and the prospect of replacing the concrete deck in some circles has even sparked debate of whether this actually needs to happen. And here's the real kicker. Once the work's been completed, how long before the bridge needs replacing? 20 years. Just 20 years, and we need to replace the whole bridge. Is this really the best use of $85 million worth of taxpayer dollars to repair a bridge that will hopefully last for 20 years? It all seems farcical, Mr Speaker. No clear communication, no clear plan and no direction for the people of Ipswich. It reminds me of the recently completed new Mount Crosby vehicle bridge over the Brisbane River. Perfect opportunity, but we've missed that opportunity and people will still be flooded in with big releases from Wivenhoe. So when we look at it, it's about all we get around Ipswich. Despite urgently needing this investment to start now to accommodate the projected 222,000 extra people within the next 17 years. Mr Deputy Speaker, projects in Ipswich which urgently need funding include the following: Cunningham Highway Amberley Interchange upgrade. We only have been talking about that one for 27 years. Investment of $4 million for the detailed business case for the Ipswich Central Second River Crossing. Further investment in the business case for the Western Ipswich Bypass. More funding for local schools like Brassel, Tivoli, Leichhardt in particular, Walloon and Amberley District State Schools, all of whom do a wonderful job educating our kids, but they need more support, especially as Ipswich continues to grow. More funding into the Warrego Highway to fix places like the Walloon, Amberley, Haigsley and Schultz's Road intersection, where only the last few weeks has seen over 12 accidents. And when it comes to health, Mr Speaker, well, we're miles behind. Once again, the statistics paint a dire picture for our health and wellbeing of Ipswich locals. Ambulance ramping at the Ipswich Hospital is one of the worst in the state. The March 24 quarter data reveal ramping was at 63.2%, up 4.2% in this year alone. This is nothing short of an utter disgrace. The Premier has proudly stated a record $28.9 billion into health, yet people are dying ramped after the health crisis this government has created. Getting patients off stretchers within 30 minutes is only at 59%, despite the government's own goal of 90%. Patients have seen the emergency department within 4 hours is currently at 60%, despite the government's own goal of 80%. This Labor government has continually failed the people of Ipswich when it comes to primary health care, just like they've failed and abandoned us on youth crime. We have a youth crime crisis. Mr Speaker, since being elected, I've been regularly out door knocking and listening to the locals of Ipswich West. On one street alone in Leichhardt, 2 people told me their cars being stolen by youth criminals, 2 nights running. These are hard-working locals and families who are just trying to get ahead. Yet we constantly feel like we're being kicked in the guts. And with break and enters up 54%, assaults being up 220%, stolen cars up by 115% since this Labor government watered down youth crime laws, you can see why they feel this way. It seems the people of Ipswich West that their safety, their lives just don't matter. We are 1,500 police short on what the government promised as of today, and so we might put their fancy spin on things. The fact is, people in my community feel less safe and less supported by this tired Labor government. Mr Deputy Speaker, this budget was another missed opportunity for not only the people of Queensland, but especially the people of Ipswich. Instead of investing in region and nation-building projects, instead of looking at ways to appropriately reduce the cost of living pressures and enabling families to feel safe and put a roof over their heads, we've seen a desperate cash splash. This 10th Labor budget is clearly about the next 4 months, not the next 4 years. The government before me are miles off the right priorities for Queenslanders. It is only an LNP Crisafulli Government that will get this state back on track and deliver for the people of Queensland. To the people of Ipswich, remember this. The only time the Palaszczuk government, Miles government, decided that they need to care for you is when they think they'll lose power. They have almost a decade in government, and what does Ipswich have to show for it? A crime crisis, a health crisis, a cost of living and crime housing crisis. This is nothing short of a desperate budget aimed at distracting people from the pain, chaos and neglect from this government.
Deputy Speaker. Call the member for